Okay, folks, it is 6:32, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Farney.
Here.
Furtado.
Here.
Greer.
Here.
Hanauer Friedman.
Here.
Locke.
Here.
Lockshin.
Here.
Michaels. Owen.
Here.
Pugh.
Present.
Rodriguez. Rogers. Sexton. Smith.
Here.
Storr.
Present.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Here.
Thorsland.
Here.
Vanish Thiernot.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Coert.
Present.
Esri.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
We have a quorum. All right, tonight's prayer. Thank you for the change of seasons. As we leave behind a winter that wore out its welcome, let us step into spring with a fresh heart, ready for nature to take its course. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on March 21st, 2024, 6:30 p.m. in the Shields-Carter Meeting Room, Brookings Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Taylor. Second. Locke. Yeah, Mr. Thorsland.
Yeah, we would like to again move Kathy's ARPA update to, I forget where we put it last time. After what? Before communications, I think, right? After the consent?
Okay, and that's 9A1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a motion to amend the agenda. Is there for Mr. Thorsland? Second. Second, Ms. Taylor. Any discussion? All in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The agenda is amended. All in favor of passing the amended agenda, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda's passed. All right. Next regular scheduled meetings are listed on the agenda. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? I don't have any forms at this time. Seeing none, I'm going to close public participation. For the consent agenda, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved by Mr. Farney, second by Samantha. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Farney.
Yes.
Furtado.
Yes.
Greer.
Yes.
Hanauer Friedman.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lockshin.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Storr.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Vanish Thiernot.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Coert.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right. Now, on the amended agenda, we would move on to American Rescue Plan Act, our presentation from Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you for moving the topic up, and we've included the regular monthly update in the packets with the project status and the timeline and financial overview. We've been ramping up communications with the different departments and outside agencies as far as how their expenses are going and how their timelines are going so that we can keep planning for any funds that may need to be reallocated. And we had a discussion about that this week. And so we continue to work with all the different agencies and departments on status of their payments and their projects. And I'd be happy to try to get into specifics if there's specific questions.
Go ahead.
Hi. I'm concerned about the housing authority projects and what I see as a lack of spending under affordable housing assistance. It looks like nothing has been spent so far. Have you heard anything from them?
We did hear from them last month with an invoice to request for reimbursement, and we just need additional documentation first. And then I know that there's some work still to be done on that project that they can't invoice for yet. So it's going as fast as they can, yeah.
Thanks.
So just to clarify, are we talking about the 675 for Housing Authority in the affordable housing category? Is that what you're looking at, Member Straub? Okay. I got the Jen part right. I was halfway there.
I had to stop to give you a mom look.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. I didn't have my glasses on, so it didn't hurt me. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I got that one. That's the renovations to their domestic violence shelter, and we are in communication with them and pushing for a more concrete timeline of when that project will be started and completed. So.
Any further questions? Okay. Go ahead.
I was wondering about the EDC low hurdle program. Is there progress being made on that?
Yeah, the EDC plans to meet with the SBDC director later this month. Actually, we're in later this month, sometime in the next 4 or 5 days, and they plan to submit a proposal by early April. And the main delay has been they've been trying to make sure they're not duplicating grant programs that have already come before this one. So we expect a proposal soon.
Go ahead, Samantha.
Thanks, Steve. I did get a phone call asking exactly the funds that's already been allocated need to be spent by 2025 or 2026.
Different contracts have different end dates. A majority end at the end of this year, 2024. Technically, for ARPA's federal guidelines, all funds have to be spent by the end of 2026, but everything has to be obligated by the end of this year, specifically obligated in the categories. So other than that, depending on the contract,
The YMCA.
that ends, I believe, at the end of this year.
Okay.
On the current contract as it is. Yeah.
Okay. And if they were to get additional funds, then it would be extended to 2026?
It could be considered for extension. I can't say if it would be into 2026 or what the county would want to do on that, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, thank you, Kathy, for being here. Really appreciate all the things you're doing. Hey, I just wanted to provide a quarterly update from the Muhammad Area Youth Club and what progress they've made so far, and I thought it would be appropriate to do that. And I reached out to them. They gave me a 9-page report, but I'm not going to read all 9 pages. Just a couple highlights. The Muhammad Area Youth Club is a nonprofit organization in Muhammad, Illinois, that services the Muhammad Seymour community, and they offer services to 1st through 9th grade. They currently host an after-hour school program for junior high students. That's 6 through 9, and program time runs from 3:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday. They do all kinds of things they have snacks, they do homework, they do enrichment activities, and they actually had a special spring break program for this spring break. It was for 1st through 9th graders, and that ran from the 11th through the 15th, 7:30 to 5:30. 7:30 in the morning, 5:30, special spring break program. They had over 30 students attend that spring break program. A couple items that they do, they have after-school snacks, sports, and they have a lot of clubs. They have a photography club, an art club, a life skills club, awareness kits, and they do a bunch of field trips. And for particular this spring break, they had a week-long, it was a huge success. Students did a lot of activities, create their own stuffed animals, DIY kites, that should have been exciting, and Lego building, cooking club, and even STEM stuff. And they just had a lot of good activities. So I'm just thankful, and the Muhammad Area Youth Club obviously is thankful for the contribution that the county board is providing to Muhammad Macy, MAYC. That's the building that has the business that hasn't closed yet, their doors, but that's just a pun. But MAYC is thank you for your support. If you got any questions, or if you'd like me to forward this to anybody, I would be so happy to do that. Would anybody like that? All right, Stephanie, sure.
Could you maybe just forward it to the whole board?
I actually do that too.
Just two other quick updates. We are going to be hearing from, First Followers reached out and asked if they could come and let the board know they got a sizable chunk of money, and they're going to bring, I believe they're working with 5 different partner groups to come give us an update, and that'll be at the May full board. And then I believe the Farm Bureau is coming to give us an update about the Cover Crop project that's ARPA funded at the June cow.
That is correct.
And I should also say, if anybody wants, if there's a particular thing on here that you would like to hear them and have them come, that's something we could always facilitate.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks. Just along with Stephanie, I know St. Joe has, have indicated, I've heard that they'd be willing to come, and not that they necessarily have a specific date set yet, but they'd be willing to come and just say, hey, this is what we've done with the ARPA money thus far in St. Joe too. So, I mean, it'd be nice. I mean, not saying that everyone, but it's nice that at least hear from some of these. That'd be great.
Can we get that on the agenda for, I don't know, like, we're trying not to put too many all on one meeting, but yeah, let's get, I like the idea of highlighting one of the rural water projects. I think that would be a great idea.
I can definitely let them know. They've already asked for more money, so just be prepared for that in the presentation. So,
Any further questions for Kathy? Seeing none, thank you. All right, do any members of the board have communications to share? Go ahead, JJ.
Well, I just very quickly wanted to offer my commendations to the county clerk's office for the success on Tuesday at the primary election. I thought things went very smoothly. I voted by mail. I did a mail ballot and dropped it off in the drop-off box, was able to track it. I thought that was fantastic. So my hat's off to the clerk and all of the staff in that office and all the election judges for the hard work they did on that day. And with a low turnout election, it was a long day for election judges. So my hat's off to them as well.
Eric.
Thank you for that. We didn't set this up, by the way. I was going to comment on the same thing. It was a 16% turnout, which is really sad. We had 55% of the voters who did turn out were Dems, 44 were GOP. Early voting was 2,709. Vote by mail was 6,297. And election day was 8,296. So if you add up the early vote and the vote by mail, it just broke over 50%. 52% was either early or by mail, which I think may be first time that we've done that. I'm not sure. There you go. The unfortunate side of it was some polling stations did have to be closed due to a lack of judges. And those numbers are as follows. We had 112 Dem judges with a requirement for 111, and we had only 66 GOP with a requirement for 115. So there's two things to take away from this. With only 60% turnout, that means until November, the rest of you can't complain, everyone. And we really need to up the GOP judges. I think we want to keep those rural places open for the people who really want to vote out there. So I extol all the folks that are out there that always wanted to be a part of the process to sign up, if you're GOP especially, because the clerk needs more judges, period. And the pay is better than it used to be.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks. Just to let everybody know, Strides Shelter, run by somebody we know, who used to sit around here, at 70 East Washington in Champaign, is having an underwear drive, new underwear, for folks who are unhoused. That would be very appreciated. You could drop it off anytime. And it's getting warm, so Cunningham Township will need water. So bottled water, bring it by, 205 West Green Street. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Brett.
Just remember, April 5th, do not look directly at the sun. Please do not. Oh, is it 8th? My people are wrong.
5th, we'll be distributing glasses to county
I'm
employees.
sorry. Excuse me.
Any day.
Yeah. Sorry, that's the learning disability I have, and 5 and 8 are too close to my head. Thanks.
Jeff?
Thank you. I guess we all didn't coordinate this either, but I do want to express my sincere gratitude to the clerk's office and their staff and all the work that they have to do, especially on Election Day. It's got to be incredible. Whatever time you start at 5 in the morning and at midnight and carrying stuff back and forth. So I want to thank the clerk's office for their activities and all the things they did. My voting experience was pretty simple. I showed up early voting in Mahomet, and, well, just my wife and I. And then so we showed up, and the election judges were very professional. There were 3 election judges, and I thought it was a good experience. So I highly recommend early voting. So if I'm calculating Eric's statistics sort of correctly, about 50% of the population this time voted early, right? And about 25 on the either side, sort of, kind of, which is a shift because last election it was 50% on election day. So it's interesting, but it could be just the season. The one caution I would say is being an election judge and a poll watcher is a partisan activity, right? It's a partisan activity. And if you're a Republican and you're watching this show, I would encourage you to be an election judge and to be a poll watcher. So, and generally, most people have good experiences, but unfortunately, I've received a couple reports of some of the negative experiences. And if you're going to be an election judge, individual, or poll watcher, electioneering is just really not acceptable in a polling location. So, what is electioneering? Electioneering could be anything. It could be, vote for elephants because they're better than donkeys or something like that. Or you could just have a hat on or some kind of emblem or just whatever. So it's just unacceptable, and it can be intimidating, right? It could be intimidating to have electioneering inside a polling location. So just a word to the wise for those that are listening and have a desire to be election judge, just use the proper etiquette and keep the electioneering outside of the polling location. So that's all I have for that. And then I actually have one more. And the second one is we met with the veterans yesterday. It was a very interesting meeting. They did have a quorum. They had at least 6 members that are voting eligible. But what I wanted to highlight with the meeting yesterday, and this is really a shout out to the Urbana Rotary Club. So a member from the Urbana Rotary Club was there. And I thought this was so cool because she showed up and saying, and she found this on her own, right? It's not like it was advertised. She showed up and said, hey, what can we do as an Urbana Rotary Club member to support veterans? And I thought that was so cool, so I gave her a couple ideas, right? So this year, there are 2 main events for veterans. There's a veteran stand down, which is going to be in the fall, which is distributing a lot of materials, all kinds of cool stuff for homeless veterans. And then I think on June 1 at ILEAS, there will be another veterans trauma care services at Ilias on June 1. But anyway, just a shout out to Urbana Rotary Club. And if there's other Rotary clubs out there, there's an example for you. So anyway, thank you to the Urbana Rotary Club.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right. We will go on to the next item. Can I get an omnibus motion to approve the minutes for February 22nd regular meeting and February 27th study session? Okay, Mike and Ellie have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No corrections? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, standing committees, the summary of action for county facilities was taken March 5th, and the meeting is received and placed on file. Highway and Transportation's March 8th meeting received and placed on file. And Committee of the Whole's March 22nd meeting received and placed on file. All right, can I get a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2024-64 authorizing payment of claims? Go ahead, Jenny moves that, Mike seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. All right, can I get a motion to approve Resolution 2024-65, approving purchases not following purchasing policy? So moved by Taylor, second. Okay, second by JJ. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, can I get a motion to approve Resolution 2024-66, authorizing the Champaign County Engineer to enter into contracts, including joint participation agreements with the state of Illinois? Motion by Ms. Court, second by Mr. Pugh. Is there any discussion on this? There is some information in the packet that, go ahead, Chris.
Hi. The Mahomet Aquifer Protection Task Force met in 2018, and one of the particular threats that was noted was that of road salt. And it seems like every time I go to a groundwater meeting, not every time, but almost every time, I hear a paper about, yep, there's more salt being found in shallow aquifers, and there is no doubt where this salt is coming from. It's runoff from roads, and of course it also gets into our streams. But as this gets into our shallow groundwater, it becomes a matter of interest. Does it stay in that shallow groundwater, or is it slowly percolating or rapidly percolating into lower aquifers? I hear people say that they just take whole bags of salt and just spread it as to ensure that they don't have any sort of a problem or any close to it. But I hope that we'll use this salt as carefully and in a limited fashion as necessary so that we can preserve our natural resources. Thanks for listening to my sermon.
I know Jeff does try and minimize the use of salt, and will also try and use, I'm trying to remember, is it sodium sulfate as a liquid to try and, sodium chloride, to try and, again, mitigate the use as to the degree that he can. Part of the salt we end up, part of the use of our salt dome is taken up by the city of Urbana as well. So when you see all the salt in there, it's not quite all ours. Some of it's Urbana's as well. All right, any other comments? Yep, go ahead.
I just invite my fellow board member to come to the Highway Committee and please give us a full briefing on this and presentation. PowerPoint would be great. We need something like that.
Jeff's heard my sermon, and I just felt the need to.
No, we would love to learn more, please.
Jeff, did you have something as well?
Yes, sir, thank you. So this is for my education, so I'm going to ask a couple questions, and whoever can answer this would be wonderful. So as a new board member, I'm unfamiliar with the engineering contracts and what they accomplish. So I think I understand it, but I just want to be clear, just for my education and maybe for all who might be interested. What are the limitations of the engineer with respect to contracts? Is that engineer limited by budget, or is there anything else? Or assuming they have a garage of a budget and then can issue contracts as needed for services, but can't go above a budget limit, is that correct?
You're talking about with regard to our highway engineer?
Well, I thought we were talking about the engineer and the contract. Did I miss that? I probably did.
This is particularly for the highway engineer.
Okay.
This would probably have been on consent, but I don't think Jeff was able to get it on the agenda in enough time. The state of Illinois evidently changed some rules in terms of what they were requiring for us to enter into contracts, particularly for salt in this particular case.
Okay.
And he's simply complying with the state regulation as I guess, as amended. And we've got multiple members of Highway. Did I state that correctly? Because you were all in the meeting as well. Okay. So yeah, this is pursuant just to the highway engineer. In this particular case, it's to purchase of road salt. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie.
More broadly, the finance rules that govern us state that for anything over $30,000, there has to be an RFP, and that's when our responsible bidder language comes into play as well. Back in not long ago, at least I believe those have evened out. They used to have two different thresholds, which made no sense, and I think we worked on that last year. But I would highly recommend for everybody on the board, looking at our finance rules would be a really good idea, because it sort of spells out, what makes what happen, like what are the different thresholds for all sorts of different things. But the 30,000 is the threshold usually when this body has to, and there has to be a formal RFP process. Below that, there's more discretion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on. That would be item D, the Regional Planning Commission's Emergency Rental Assistance Program. That would be adoption of Resolution 2024-67, approving an IGA between Champaign County Regional Planning and Champaign County and Housing Authority of Champaign County. Lisa Benson is here from RPC if people would have questions about this. Can I get a motion to approve? So moved by Samantha, second by Aaron. Motion and a second. Questions? Do you want to have Lisa come to the mic and ask or answer any questions you folks have?
Is it on or off?
You're on. Okay. You're on now.
Good evening.
I assumed there were questions. Go ahead, Chris.
Ms. Benson, could you tell us a little bit about the some interesting facts that you related earlier about the amount of need for housing, especially among those for homeless? And thank you.
Good evening. I had shared with Mr. Storr, he had asked a little bit about this, and I had a few facts in case anyone had any questions, so I'll go ahead and share those. Just recently, there was a report that was released from Housing Action Illinois and the National Low Income Housing Coalition. The study was the GAP Affordable Housing Homes. Find that there's 36 affordable and available rental homes for every 100 extremely low income renter households in the state. So this actually is specifically for low income renters. So it aligns with that study when I received that information. I think last week I thought that was a good tidbit to share. More specifically in this intergovernmental agreement, we specifically created a tenant selection plan that aligned with some of the needs specific to Champaign County. About at least 100 single-person households every night are experiencing homelessness here in Champaign County, and we have roughly 65 permanent supportive housing, affordable housing units specifically for homeless households. Those are all consistently filled, and the ability to continue to develop affordable housing in general in our county is difficult, but specifically for homeless. So we did include that prioritization for homeless households within this IGA. If you look into it more specifically, it is highlighted in there. So I wanted to also highlight that. So those were some of the facts that I had shared with Mr. Storr.
You spoke also about the strides and, or formerly Time Center, and I think that's at capacity.
Consistently, that is at capacity. Within that 100 that I had referenced, at least 60 individuals are usually being sheltered at the Strides shelter, and it's most regularly at capacity.
Samantha.
Thanks, Steve. I'm wondering about home ownership for low-income families. Any programming in the works for that?
What I'm aware of, particularly in our county, when you mention home ownership, the Habitat for Humanity that's the primary programming that I'm aware of.
But nothing offered through Housing Authority?
I can't speak. Actually, I'm glad you said that. I'm not from the Housing Authority. I'm from Regional Planning Commission.
Oh.
But they do, I'm still on. They do have a program, particularly, and not a spokesperson, but I'm familiar with, I believe that people that are in their Move to Work programming or in any of their vouchers, they do have some programs where they offer family empowerment and self-sufficiency, and actually participation creates savings towards home ownership. So I'm glad you asked that. There is another program. I just had forgot about that.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Anyone else? Stephanie?
This is like apropos of nothing, but since we're talking about the cost of, one of the things that makes citing new construction for unhoused people in our county and in all counties incredibly difficult is the cost of developing those properties. And I've been reading this, I asked for it for Christmas because I am that kind of nerd, really interesting book called Paved Paradise about parking and how parking is one of the requirement for parking for facilities that are often going to house people that do not have cars is astronomical. It drives up the cost of, in the United States, new construction, $50,000 for every parking spot, and then also diminishes the amount of space there is for actual housing because, and I just looked it up, in Urbana, for every bedroom in a new apartment, you have to have half a spot. So if you have a 2-bedroom apartment, that's a car, and that's actually low compared to some other places, right? And so one of the things I think maybe that all of us can think about as government officials is why are our parking requirements from, in a lot of ways, are one of the things that makes developing any sort of public housing cost prohibitive and has tanked multiple projects across the country. Yeah. So anyway, that's, I just, yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I think that's one of the things that isn't talked a lot about, but that drives up the cost of a lot of these projects.
Lorraine.
I was wondering, do you have anything in place for a person that's renting and can barely pay their rent because their wages are too low to really accommodate their rent?
We, at the Regional Planning Commission, we do offer, and throughout the county, there's a rental assistance partnership. So when individuals or household members have hardships, they're able to get rent assistance. With regard to reoccurring long-term ongoing subsidies, we don't have any specific programs for that. The Housing Authority does have low-income housing subsidies that they administer here in Champaign County.
So what is the criteria for them to get into the program?
Into which program, ma'am?
I mean, do they have to show proof like a paid stub and the amount of rent they pay?
With the rent
qualify?
assistance? With rent assistance?
Yeah, for rental assistance.
Yes.
Okay, like I know you all say 30% of the income toward rent. Do that apply or what?
I think what you're referencing with the 30%, oftentimes the statistic that they state with regard to affordable housing is that someone doesn't pay more than 30% of their household income, and oftentimes that is what rental subsidies are based on. So if there's a rental subsidy for someone who's in a program, most oftentimes they're not paying more than 30% of what their household income is.
Okay.
Any further questions for Lisa? Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Lisa. And thanks, the rental tenant selection plan seems reasonable. Thank you for working on that. I'm just, from a curiosity standpoint, how does the acquisition of the property, what's the process for that?
Full transparency, this is new to me, and it's not my expertise.
Okay.
Exactly why we are partnering with the Housing Authority Champaign County. That is what they do, and that is their expertise. So I don't have answers specifically to that, but I'm sure we would be happy to come back and provide more details if you'd like.
If you just shoot me an email, that's fine. I just like to understand. And if you shoot me an email, you have to come back. I don't know if anyone wants you to come back, but if you just send an email and say this is our general process for acquisition, that'd be cool.
Sure.
Thank you.
JJ?
So Lisa, when you say that, do you mean the Housing Authority will actually be screening individuals that will live in there, in this new property, or is regional planning handling that side of things?
There will be a partnership.
Okay.
Specifically, the way the prioritization works, we do have a centralized intake for homeless that very specifically identifies homeless households and, the different criteria. In many ways, what we envision with the selection plan, I had referenced that we have permanent supportive housing vouchers for homeless. There's individuals, they're permanent, so there's households that have been in those vouchers sometimes 10 years. So the idea is that with supportive services, they're pretty stable.
Mm-hmm.
When you first maybe enter a voucher, you're restabilizing in housing, and we support more frequently, more intensely. That's what I was looking for. But after some years, there's more stability. So in my mind's eye, what I would hope to see is that some of the individuals that are in these permanent supportive housing vouchers may very well move into this more independent housing, and then we can backfill into these vouchers that have higher intensity support.
And do you know how many units are in this building?
8.
There's 8. And will we be, I saw a lot of language in the agreement about looking at the criteria and the prioritization, that it's a single person that's been in the position for 5 years, a single person for 2 years, and then a single household. Is this mostly going to be like a single person in each of the 8 units? Okay, so that's how, it's like you'll be so potentially 8 persons who are currently unhomed could be in this facility?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then the only other comment, thank you, I really appreciate it. The only other comment I had is the question about funds for helping people of low income to purchase homes. Another resource that's out there that I'm familiar with from my previous life as a mortgage banker is the Illinois Housing Development Authority. They have grants that help people. One of the biggest obstacles to homeownership is having a down payment. And in Champaign and Urbana, there are not many zero down payment programs, but the IDA loans and IDA grants are a great tool to help someone get into homeownership. If you're in the rural community, USDA loans are 0% down, and so that's a great tool for folks that meet certain income requirements in order to get them into homeownership. And IDA loans can only be done through banks and credit unions, so you've got to talk to a bank or a credit union about that.
Thank you.
May I add one other thing, Mr. Farney? You referenced in the 1-bedrooms. What we've found is there's a significant shortage of 1-bedroom affordable units, and that's particularly one of the areas. And then also with the number of single-person homeless shelter beds that we have in our community, the references that I made for the over 100 are for single individuals.
Jeff.
Thank you. Out of curiosity, so what 1-bedroom? What is the size? I mean, how many square feet? Is it? I don't know. Is it like 10 by 10 for a 1-bedroom? And I don't know. Is there a kitchen and a? I don't know. Just.
I don't have the square footage. They are 1-bedrooms. They have a full kitchen,
Okay.
a living area, good-sized bathroom. I can get the square footage and send that to you.
Well, no,
for sure.
I'm just curious. You just shared exactly what I need to know. So
Yeah.
it's there's a bedroom, kitchen.
They're definitely not
all that
tiny,
stuff.
and they're
Okay.
not overwhelmingly large either to
Okay.
maintain.
It's kind of like a studio apartment, sort of, or?
They're definitely bigger. They're
than
not a studio.
Okay.
They're 1-bedroom.
Alrighty. All right, thank you.
JJ.
Jeff, to answer your question, the building that they're actually purchasing, I pulled it up, it's your typical college apartment,
Okay.
basically. So, 1-bedroom, a little living area, a kitchenette going into the dining room, but it's a very typical around Champaign-Urbana college-type apartment.
All right, cool. I just remember when I was in the military, one of my duty stations in the Seattle area, and rented a place, it was like, all you can do is fit a bed, a tiny aisleway, maybe a microwave. I don't know if they invented microwaves back then, but anyway, that's about all that was available. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that.
The other thing that we did include in here that is not generally typical is furnishings. So that's something also that we asked for that to be included.
Samantha.
I just had 2 quick questions. One was, is there a time limit that one could use the property or be a renter in that property? And just wondering for our homeless population that may have any kind of drug addictions or issues, mental health, I mean, like anything that would address any of those issues as well.
Sure. No, there is no time limit. It is permanent housing. So as long as they continue to qualify, it is income-based housing. So it would be wonderful if their income would come to a threshold where they would no longer qualify. I would see that as a success, but no, there's not a time limit. They have to continue to meet eligibility based on the income criteria. With regard to what you referenced, if there's other situations that they might benefit from services or not, if they choose not to. It's permanent housing, So there's no requirement that someone has to jump through any certain hoops. We always take a housing first type of model to house someone and then try to support them in the ways that they need that in any kind of supportive services. With this, again, with partnership, we envision and hope to be able to provide supportive services to people if they wish to have those.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
And I did note, oh, I'm sorry, Stephen.
That's fine. Go ahead.
I did note that there is going to be an on-site office for management service coordination. So I was really excited to see that. And that probably goes a little bit to your question, Chair.
Stephanie.
You know, it occurred to me, we have a lot of new folks on the board who might not be familiar with Lisa. She's the person at RPC who the board often comes to and is like, we'd like to do this crazy thing, and she helps us figure it out. So she is the person who did the household assistance program with us through our ARPA money. She is the person who's helping us figure out how to do the sleep program with our ARPA money. She is the person who helped us figure out how to get a social worker in our sheriff's office. And now she's the person who's facilitating this. So Lisa, thank you on behalf of the board and for all of the work that you do for the people in our county, and also to support the vision often that the board comes to you often with these half-baked ideas, and you're like, here's how we actually build out a program. So thank you for
Sure,
that.
thank you. I enjoy partnering with you.
Seeing no further questions, let's call for a vote. I'm going to call for a vote on this. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we're moving on to the second RPC amendment. It's resolution number 2024-68, approving budget amendment BUA 2024-02-195, Fund 2075, Regional Planning Commission, Department 100, Regional Planning, increased appropriations $700,000, increased revenue $0. Reason, RPC wishes to enter into an agreement with the Housing Authority to purchase a property that's suitable for very low-income individuals who are formerly homeless. Samantha is the motion. Second, Straub. Getting my gens mixed up again as well. You can shoot me that look. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've already had some questions with regard to this, so I don't think we really need to go further unless somebody does want to call Lisa back to the microphone. Not seeing any takers on that. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Oh, the roll call. This requires 15 votes. Thank you.
Farney.
Yes.
Furtado.
Yes.
Greer.
Yes.
Hanauer Friedman.
Yes. Yes.
Lokshin.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Storr.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Vanish Thiranot.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Cowart.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving forward to item E, adoption of resolution 2024-69, authorizing the execution of an agreement to participate in a minimum guarantee fund for the University of Illinois Willard Airport. And we have Jen Locke with the motion on that, really champing at the bit there. And second, Jenny Lokshin. And I will add, we had a presentation for this at Cal. I did not recall the board coming forward with a specific amount that they would be interested in setting this at. So the resolution reads at the same amount level that we did, that an earlier board approved for the support for the Willard to DC route. So if it's the will of the board to amend this, you can certainly do that. You can leave it as it stands. I know other entities are providing more robust amounts, but their budget situation may not be quite the same as ours. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Go ahead, Jenny.
I guess from the discussion at the COW, I was under the impression that we were looking to commit at the $15,000 level, just based on like what the ask was and maybe what we'd done before. I think that was the
Okay.
figure in my head, so.
All right. Go ahead.
I'd be willing to increase that because I think this is an important, needed service for our county.
Then we need a motion to amend and a second on that. You'd have to try and decide on the dollar amount that you would be looking at, Chris.
I'm just expressing an opinion. But if somebody makes
All
a
right.
motion, I'll be glad to consider a second.
All right, go ahead, Ellie.
Along those lines, I didn't get the sense that we needed to commit more than that at this point, since they are going to perhaps the corporate side as well. If there's a way to, I assume they would come back to us, right? If they didn't have enough and we'd committed 15,000.
They could well do that. I'm trying to recall from the presentation when they wanted to have the funds on hand, and I was thinking that it was it April 1? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Jim.
They've asked for a commitment by April 1st so that they have all of their information for the strongest possible proposal at this conference in May. The thing they're most looking for is a buy-in from mass entities around the county. So that we are involved is far more meaningful than the dollar amount. Now, Champaign is putting in $75,000, Urban's putting in $50,000, but I think given our budget situation, $15,000 shows that we're involved and that we support it and is also realistic. And also just a reminder to anyone in the room and anyone listening, the University of Illinois' $500,000 would be spent in its entirety before any of our money would be touched. And that would then be in proportion to private entities and the other cities involved.
JJ.
Where is the money coming from in our budget? Is it coming from executive?
This would be general revenue fund.
From general revenue, okay. Yeah. Will we need to do a budget amendment at some point for this then?
I asked that question prior, and I was going with the advice that I'd received. This could be simply a voice vote. Okay. But my suspicion was if we're going to actually pull it out of general revenue, we will need 15 votes on this.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And just one other reminder that right now it's a pledge, and once there's a contract signed, that's when the money needs to be done. So then at that point, yes, probably that would be the timing for it.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
I'm going to vote yes for it because in previous years, we helped the Willard Airport expand to where they're at now. So it's not like we haven't gave to them before.
That's absolutely correct. Brett.
Just as usual, I'm probably going to vote no because $15,000 is a lot of money, and I'd still rather see it go to our people and our programs. That's all.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would agree with the $15,000. I would like to keep it there. And I do appreciate all the work that Jennifer's done to support this and articulate how it goes. But I think it's a benefit, if this is successful, financially for our community. And maybe out of that financial benefit, some of that money will eventually trickle to or be offset for or to support other activities that we need in the county through tax or however revenue is generated. Am I right on that, John? Yep, okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, this time we'll do a voice vote. If we have to do a formal BOH, we probably will at some point. But at this point, if we pass the resolution, they'll be able to have that to move forward with their April 1st date. So all in favor of this, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. We're skipping now past the American Rescue Plan Act to a discussion for Asylum Seekers Emergency Fund. There is a piece that was distributed for the meeting. Let me pull mine out too.
Yeah, my apologies. I meant to have the memo in your packet, and then last week it was Monday, and then it was Friday, and I don't really know what happened to the days in between, but that was my week last week, so, yeah.
I think there's been general discussion with both caucuses in terms of information about this. Does anyone have any comments that they want to make, or any information they'd like to add to the memorandum? Go ahead.
Just any idea what size of budget or the line item, what we would potentially be looking at if we would decide to do this?
So 25,000 is the request, which should be more than sufficient. John from EMA has already gotten some quotes if we needed to rent a bus. That's going to be probably between $2,500 and $4,000 for a bus to Chicago and back. And this is just basically planning for worst case scenario. So we get a bus that gets broken down in Champaign County that has, 100 individuals on it. Our local resources aren't equipped to handle that. And the state and federal governments are really pushing the local governments to just support those people to get them up to the welcoming center in Chicago. That's where all the resources and the structure is established. So 25,000 is a very, I think, safe number. Ideally, we won't use any of it. It's just that in the event something happens, John knows that he has a fund to activate, and we can get these people where they need to be for safety and resources, and not have, 100 some people here who can't speak the language with no resources and no support. So.
The intention also is that if we get towards the end of the year, and we do have to be careful in terms of the timeline on ARPA funds, if we get close to the end of the year, we would likely consider where we would reallocate these funds. So we're not going to just leave them on the table to go back to DC. Go ahead.
First of all, I appreciate John thinking ahead for eventualities, for some kind of contingency. So I appreciate his efforts in order for us just to think ahead. So it's nice to have people that in our county government that plan ahead and think ahead. So I appreciate that. I think I'm probably more of a stickler on the title, and to make sure that the title is a targeted title for what is being asked for, rather than an overarching umbrella. In other words, this request is really to provide emergency transportation if there's a stranded bus failure or something to that effect. So I'm really keen on maybe, this is discussion only, so it's a discussion. There's no vote taken here, but I would like to see it more targeted to what it's actually doing rather than having a broad umbrella.
Can I ask what's not targeted enough in the current title?
Well, let's hear what we're asking for. What John is asking for is basically emergency bus transportation for asylum seekers that get stranded between here and Chicago. That's how am I wrong on reading that?
Well, only for the individuals who are being, quote unquote, shipped from the Texas municipalities, like that kind of stranded. Or another, very slim possibility, but could happen, would be if a plane was redirected and landed at Willard, like those people would need to be moved as well. So we're not talking about just like a van full of individuals who wanted to move somewhere. We're talking about these specific buses and transportation entities that are being pushed out of the border states by the governments there. That's who this money would be directed at.
And so to that end, I just would like to have it be entitled that way.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny.
I would like to disagree with that. I think if we look further down, it says that this is for any needs that may arise, not specifically just bus travel, like if we need to secure overnight housing, food. I think this, as it is right now, is broad enough to let Champaign County EMA do their jobs and determine what they think is best needed. The best way to handle any situation like that, that's not my expertise. I'm going to let John handle that, and this is the funds that he would be able to do that with in an emergency situation. I think we need to leave it open just so that he can make that determination.
I mean, I would say I can't imagine
Mic turned off.
I can't imagine a scenario where we're not having to do at least one night of a hotel, because to get a bus is, even if it's 10 a.m., they're not going to have a bus available for us right away. That's highly unlikely. So there will need to be, at least one night of a hotel and food. But I can say that in the conversations with John and the EMA group, it's a very narrow focus of just providing them with immediate emergency resources and transporting them to Chicago. That is the sole focus of this fund and this conversation. There's other community organizations that are assisting people who are maybe trying to stay here or came here intentionally. That's not what this is about.
Stephanie?
So 2 suggestions, maybe one to move it along. Could we make it say ARPA request for asylum seekers for the Emergency Management Association? And then second, I would like to say that I don't see any reason why this should wait. And this is ARPA money. And we, as a body, going back before this group of administrators, haven't voted on ARPA money because we've already appropriated it into the budget. And so by sort of our budgetary authority, it's in the budget, and what we've been doing is thumbsing it up. And so basically saying to the admin that we as a body think that it's fine that you spend that money that way. I'll be perfectly honest, they just can. So far, they just haven't been such either, we have not had that be a problem. But since our EMA has asked for this, I don't see why we'd wait to give John the resources that he's asked for. And I would like us to see it, if it does take us, a slight title change, if it could get us to get to that place where we could support it and tell them to move forward, I think that would be advantageous. So my suggestion is that we call it the ARPA request for asylum seeker support for the Emergency Management Association, and that if everybody's okay with that, that we thumbs it up so that John has the resources, the EMA has the resources that they asked for.
Jeff, does that title change meet your desired need to rename to be more specific?
Thank you, Stephanie. I guess my challenge is from a point of order standpoint, and I know historically we're using the thumbs up process. In our agenda, build this as a discussion. Is someone making a motion to change it from a discussion to a vote?
No, it's not a vote. This is basically what we've done is, so we come forward, we say, hey, here's a new ARPA thing we think we should spend money on. We have this conversation, and then the board, instead of voting, just does thumbs up or thumbs down. If it's split or there's too many thumbs down, we can continue to talk about it or tweak it. If there's a general majority of thumbs up, then we just move forward. And because the ARPA money is already appropriated, so it's all already ready to be spent in the budget. We don't need a budget amendment. We don't need a formal vote. We don't need a resolution or anything like that.
Samantha, did you have a question, comment? Okay. Yeah, my concern in terms of timeliness is ever since that busload of migrants was dropped off at Kankakee, I've had concerns that we could face the same kind of situation here in Champaign County. So I think to try and address it sooner rather than later would be something I think that John would appreciate from his position in dealing with situations that come up in Champaign County. But you guys have the vote on this. Go ahead.
I was wondering, can this also please cover asylum seekers that are not coming from border states that are coming to our county?
Well, in what capacity? Because again, this focus is the very narrow issue of when we have like a large amount of people being stranded in the county all at once. We have community groups that work with people in the like one-off, two-off, smaller amounts every day, all day. That's what they do. Our concern is that none of those organizations have the capacity, or it's not part of their practice, to deal with 100 people, 50 people, 60 people all at once showing up on their door. So that's the very specific narrow focus of this effort. And that situation seems to only be occurring in these intentional busing of asylum seekers from the border states right now.
I'm just saying, so how I read it real quick, it just seemed a little bit open-ended, so I'm just trying to get a little more clarification.
Yeah, so very narrow, just the busing situation that there seems to be some idea that it's going to end around this fall, ideally, so we just need to be prepared, hopefully until then, and then we can reallocate the funds and move on and not have to deal with this. But, to be perfectly frank, if a bus broke down on 57 right now, I do not know what we would do to help those people. I don't know where we would take them or how we would help them.
JJ.
So, Brett, to comment to your question there, I think one of the things that sticks out here is that because EMA is involved, EMA is not going to get involved unless it's a mass situation. So I think that does keep it limited because EMA is going to be handling this. I'm supportive of this. I think that it's good that John is being forward-thinking about this because as we always say, an emergency is going to happen sometime. And so it's good that he's thinking forward to this. And one note, if we do a title change to it, it is not the Emergency Management Association, but the Emergency Management Agency.
Sorry, that might have been my error. Sorry. I'm sorry. I was typing very furiously this afternoon.
Leah.
I didn't coordinate this with JJ ahead of time, but he basically just said everything I was going to say minus the agency association thing because that's above my pay grade. I'm super happy to thumbs up this tonight. I think it's really, really smart to have something in place because, I mean, it's like having an emergency fund for your house, right? If your heater goes out, you can get it fixed. Otherwise, you are freezing and your pipes are bursting. So I think this is a smart idea, and I'm really happy to support it.
Brett?
No, I'm for it too. I'm just trying to figure out what the threshold is, that's all. If we got literally somebody comes from our state, just maybe not coming from the border states, and there's like 30 people or 20 people or 10, what's our limit on that, which I'm for doing like 3 people. So I'm just trying to get a better understanding, that's all.
Stephanie?
I think that this is a particular ask from a particular body looking to solve a particular contingency, right? I want to remind us all that we also, as a body, had a whole hearing about, I know we have a lot of new board members that weren't part of that, but we had a whole hearing about and allocated $250,000 of ARPA money specifically to a consortium of 5 immigrant activist groups in the community that are doing other kinds of resource provisions like interpretation and mental health services and other things specifically to serve our immigrant population, which would be those agencies that would address sort of more one-off, or smaller group type of cases. And those bodies have essentially told the Emergency Management Agency that they don't have the capacity, like if this kind of situation that happened in Kankakee happened here, they simply would not have the capacity to deal with it. That their resources are already stretched to the max. And so therefore it's gonna, like Michelle said, there's basically nobody that would end up dealing with it. And so this is a particular fund for a particular kind of thing. But for the broader question, we've already put resources into that from ARPA. Yeah.
Don?
I support this. I've sat on the board of at least 2 of those organizations that support new families into this community, and I know their capacity. And this is specifically, I think it's narrowly defined by this memo. I also, and this goes back a few months, but I remember reading or seeing on the news about the city of Champaign allocating city funds for specifically welcoming and supporting asylum seekers in case something like this happened. And so I think that we might actually have another buffer there as well. And What? Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's good because I do think that the potential, I think that everyone was kind of shocked by the Kankakee news. But it seems to me that the city of Champaign did something immediately after that. And I'm sorry that I don't have it like in front of me. I didn't know about this until I got here and saw the memo exactly what this was about. But does anyone else remember that? The city of Champaign passing something like that and starting to work on a similar plan to temporarily house and then transport people to the landing locations in Illinois, specifically Chicago?
I remember there was discussion. I don't remember what the outcome was in terms of something that they put forward.
I'm quite certain that it's through their Office of Equity and Engagement, and that they actually have started to like roll out a plan and like put things in place. And so again, I'm still in favor of this because I do think that this community needs to be very well prepared. We're on a route that is a direct route from Texas to Chicago. So I think that it's a good plan, but I do think that this might be one more layer of protection, which I think is a good
I will
thing.
check into that. Eric?
That's fine. I support this as well, and I think the easiest way to support this and to support John's request for this, that, you know, if this mass event happens in our communities, put yourself on the bus, be one of those people, bus breaks down or you get dropped off here. What should we do? What would you like to happen to you? You know, I'd like to have something to eat and know that I'm going to get to where I thought I was supposed to be going. And so, we've already talked about the mechanism. If it looks like this isn't going to be spent before the ARPA funds need to be spent, we'll move it. But I think that we should support this completely.
So what is the direction of the board then in terms of this? Do you want to maintain it as discussion only? I'm looking at thumbs up already.
Just rephrase the title again, and then I'm okay.
Okay.
That's fine. We can narrow the title.
All right, all in favor, show that wonderful thumbs up sign. All right, definitely, I don't see any downs, so thank you, appreciate it. I think it will put us in a much better situation if we have an event occur, so thank you. All right, moving on, the next is the new county seal discussion. Everything's at the back of the agenda on that, and that's what Michelle's been working on, so I will turn my mic off.
So I took your feedback from the last time we talked about this back to the designer, and so these are the new versions. It's the same thing that you have, I just, you know, it's in color up here. So this is shrinking the clock tower down so it's all within the circle, which was one thing that we had talked about. Everyone, like, there seemed to be, people liked this design, but I think we all were in agreement that it seemed impractical that the clock tower was coming out of the emblem. So there's that one in the varying colors. This one, I think there was requests, so the new one is here on the left. There was requests to make the little circles bigger. So it was a little bit more clear to see what was in them. And those are the little circles are just these three things from the old seal. So the corn, the book, and the scales are just reimagined in the little circles. And the rays, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but the rays of light, each ray of light represents one of the townships that's in the county. And then this is the same kind of thing. So this one is obviously just the three little circles, and then doing the same concept, but also doing a version that has the Bennett Administrative Center as the focus instead of the courthouse. And then again, just some tweaks to the one with the courthouse in the green. So those are my updates. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, concerns. Oh, so many.
Jenny?
All right.
My immediate first page thought was the green on those looks very like a Starbucks logo to me. It doesn't, I mean, from here, yeah. I like the kind of darker green better than that bright green. But I like the brick red better than any of the green.
You like the red better?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also, to a point Samantha brought up at a previous meeting, I like that there's options that no longer focus on the courthouse as the center of our symbolism, I guess, because not everybody thinks of that as a happy place. So a reminder that that came up before, and I like that there's other ways to look at it now.
Don?
As someone who has congenital corneal and retinal issues, I think the first one with the brick red is the easiest to, it has the highest contrast and is easiest to see and look at clearly. I do like the symbolism of the beams of light, and therefore the highest contrast of those would be the very last one, which would be option 3.2. And I'll just make a comment about the courthouse. As a fan of architecture, I do think it's nice to have something that represents Urbana's architect there on the seal. And twice in the last 3 weeks, I've walked past the courthouse to see people who have just been married coming out. And that changed my kind of mood for the day as I saw that. So I understand the other implications of the courthouse being on our seal, but it is one of our most prominent county buildings.
Eric?
I know we're all very happy that we got the now soon-to-be named Bennett Center on the cheap, but I think it's the last thing that we want to put on the seal. It's not an attractive building, and there's nothing.
Hey, facilities
not.
committee disagrees. It's
Yeah, I mean, no, it's just not. When Samantha mentioned before the courthouse, I thought about all my times I've been in a courthouse, this one in particular, or any. I was either adopted in a courthouse or got divorced in a courthouse. Sometimes that was a positive. But
I like that the implication is there's multiple divorces, and some of them were in the courthouse, and some of them were not.
Yeah, there is actually, but that's a long story. So I'm leaning a lot towards taking sort of our rather very 60s logo here, and this first option 5.1, where we kind of expand on that. We have the rays. It looks kind of official, like I used to be into postage stamps and stuff, and this looks like that. It doesn't have any of the courthouse implications in it, good or ill, and it's very simple and basic. And you have to think about this small and big in color, in black and white, and whether or not it transfers well and all these things. How's a super complicated thing with that god-awful county plaza on a letterhead gonna look? The first pass of them, if you drive around town and you look at all the heating and cooling vans and the delivery people, everybody went to the same place and got their logos done, Castle and all that. They all look kind of that way. And I'm totally with you on the Starbucks, so let's not. So I think for me, that one, I have absolutely zero artistic capacity, but I think that's a very basic, very sort of official, and very transferable logo that is, some sort of common denominator.
Jen?
I'm actually going to agree with Eric. It happens. It does happen. I've lived and worked in a bunch of places, and a courthouse and a clock tower is a courthouse and a clock tower. It's the most beautiful building in our county. It's beautiful. But there's nothing that's specifically Champaign County about that, right? I haven't looked at all of the other county seals, but I'd be willing to bet at least a dozen of them would feature a clock tower of some sort. I'm the weirdo who likes that we have corn on ours. So I like 5.1, and going with Jenny, yeah, if we go with the others, the red is much better.
Vermilion County seal is a salt bowl, salt dome. It's very striking.
So we're not the worst.
So I just want to add just a few pieces of information. So the green is kind of based off of our website, and no one can direct me as to why our website is green. Like, at what point was that a decision? Or, so, you know, we don't have to like be married to the green, it doesn't seem to me, because it doesn't appear to be, like, it wasn't part of the seal. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we have a seal and our official color is a shade of green. So that's, you know, up for tweaking. It's hard to tell, and I will leave this up, and I would encourage you to come look at it after the meeting. It's a very pretty shade of green on this scale. It still doesn't quite translate very well on the screen. And then the other piece for the courthouse, you know, and I don't necessarily have a stake in it, but I just, from a historic perspective, the courthouse it's now the courthouse. It used to be the county building, because it used to be all of the county offices were in that single building. And it's one of the oldest buildings we have in the county. So I'm not trying to make this a hill that we die on, but I think we should be mindful that we have a very specific history of that building, but that building's entire history has been a little bit shortened in the memory of people, and just, you know, up until the 90s, all of the offices were in that single building. And that building, we have invested a lot of money, as Chair Cowart can tell you in detail, a lot of money and a lot of time into that building, into that clock tower. So at some point, we decided that building was important to us and that it meant something to us. You know, so I just think if you don't want to use it, that's fine. But like, let's just consider all of those pieces when we make that decision.
Go ahead, Ellie.
I would just say that I'm a fan of either 5.1 or the first one I think that Dawn mentioned with the courthouse in red, but I really don't like the green. So would love to see 5.
You don't like this green, or you don't like this green?
I don't like either green. I like green as a color in general, but for the logo, it just seems weird somehow.
Wow, Jenny's like right
that's
next
my
to you, and
official
you don't
opinion.
like
I know,
green?
and I mean,
Jenny.
Can I make an argument for green? Farmland, parks, forest preserves, all these things that are in our county that we pride ourselves on. Also, I'd be curious how much work, time, and money it may take to shift an entire website to change away from green so that we don't have Christmas colors on our website with the red and green. So that would be, I think, a factor as well to consider. And I do like the darker green. I just don't like that bright green on the first one.
So 2 things. I know that our designer, Mr. Brewitt, he did keep green intentionally for those reasons, because he really felt like, in terms of also talking about our land and the way our county looks rural, it's very green, and green matches. So that was an intentional choice on his part. And again, I would encourage you to please come look at it on this screen, because it looks different. And in terms of the website, that is a whole nother ball of wax. The website is actually hosted on the AS400, which we need to get rid of. Yes, that is the appropriate response. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, you know, down the road, after we have resolved our revenue and dealt with that initial needs crisis list, one of the next things is going to be that we need to permanently move our website onto a secure server and redo it in that process if we're ever going to get rid of and stop paying for the AS400 service. So, yeah.
Leah.
Sorry, Chen. Thank you. Initially, I was all about the stylized option 3, the dark green on the bottom. I love that. But now I can't stop seeing Starbucks. One of the reasons why I liked everything on that page actually is just because it is so readable. You know, it's got such contrast, which the other ones don't. And for people who are low vision or looking at it from a distance or whatever, it is just, it's a lot easier to recognize. I would love to see maybe, I mean, option 5.1 is growing on me, but like, could it be more contrasty?
I will give the designer this
do this
input.
Okay, so
They want
seriously,
this.
my husband is a graphic designer and I do stuff like that to him all the time. It's like he has a button. I think he has a button he just pushes. And I'll be like, baby, just make it like this. And he's like, pushing the button when I can't see them. I know that's not how it works, and I'm really sorry. But the other feedback that I have is for the encircled tower on page 102. Yeah, 102. I think it'd be really cool in the dark area if we had the rays of light stylized. You know what I mean? Like, that might be kind of cool. That's just regular feedback. But 5.1 is growing on me if we could get a more contrasty, striking, cleaner version. So, thank you.
So I'm hearing that we are unanimous in that we do not like the ones that have the Bennett Administrative Center on them. Okay.
Chris?
Thank you. I think the ones that we're looking at look so busy, and everything's kind of almost mushed together. It's kind of, I had trouble telling that there's, I have really trouble distinguishing what's on those three circles. And I like the simpler style that we had for option one if we have to have a change. And no, see, I mean, the corn it looks like it could be actually a Chicago hot dog. And and I can barely make out that there's a two-pan balance in the center. So yeah, enlarging it really, it helps, but I think having something that's fairly straightforward and has a neater design. I wouldn't say necessarily simpler, but a less cluttered design.
Jen?
If we're not wedded to any of the colors, and by all means tell me we are and I should go away, but the biggest color blindness that people have is red and green. And so if we could have any other color option, I hate to do that. I'm sorry I'm asking for this, but I know that when the NFL did color block, my father had no idea which team was playing which because they were solid jerseys of red versus green, and he's like, somebody's playing, and that's the only time he ever turned off a football game. So some people can't see red or green properly.
Sure.
Brett?
Sure, thank you. I want to echo Samantha's comment again about the courthouse and some of the negative connotations in our communities. The County Plaza has been a janky building for decades and decades, so I'm just going to say that. Please don't put it on there.
Well, it's ours, so maybe we
Yeah, I
should
know,
not call it that.
I hope it'll get better over the next decade and people will be more positive about it, and that'd be great. I'm just saying too, I'll echo too about 5.1. Even at this scale, it's hard to see what's going on there. You really can't scale it down for letterheads or anything like that. It'd be very difficult for that. I'm just saying it's the only person probably here with an art degree. Anybody? Art degree? You know, waste money, waste your parents' money. Anybody? Art degree? Okay. Yeah, I think if we try to make that more simplified, we're going to start going back to that. Is there a happy medium maybe between this and that, but it'd still be very difficult. And that's what I'm going to say. Thank you.
Jenny?
Just a quick, do take Michelle up on her invitation to go look at it on her screen. It does look different than it does up here. The greens are not quite as green. They're a little more like beige, like
olivey,
stone.
like light,
yeah, they're
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
They're not the same as they're displaying on here. So keep that in mind, like when you're talking color.
Eric?
Well, there was a point in my life when I was a graphic artist, but it was a very long time ago, and my vision was better. In 5.1, which I'll continue to wax poetic about, they continued the ray idea in the smaller circles, and I think that's a mistake that pulled some of the detail. They also decided, for some reason, to go into super realism only with the corn, and I'm not sure why that happened. We have some nice stylized corn. Everybody knows what corn looks like. I don't think we need to have, and why don't we put some butter on it and put some handles and some pepper? Maybe simplify the things in the little circles and the little circles themselves, but I like the Ray idea. And I think if you make the border a little bigger and the font a little bigger on those, then you get the clarity you want, so it scales down. And so then you can have some tradition from the old logo, some more simplicity, no offensive county plaza, no worries about the courthouse, which is just another old building in a small town in Illinois. And maybe that'll come across a little better for folks. And, you know,
JJ.
Okay, so I'm going to take us in a totally different direction here on a couple of things, okay? First off, we need to make sure that we understand that we're talking about maybe two different things here. Let's use our example on the wall over here. That is the seal of Champaign County. The county clerk is the keeper of the seal. I want to hear from the county clerk before we decide anything. So that's the first thing. And having worked in that office, I know that the actual seal has to go on documents. It needs to be something that when you take it for a passport, they can run their hand over, they can feel it, they can tell this is not a forgery. I think what we need to change the way we're looking at this whole process here. The seal, the actual seal of Champaign County should stay that very simple design. For the actual implement that they use to put the seal on papers, that needs to be the seal. What we're looking here at is a logo for the county that's going to go on our facilities, on our county-owned vehicles, on our letterhead, on our checks. Something that you can actually print and see. You can't see that design in an imprinted seal. I think we eliminate the words seal of the county and just have it say Champaign County, Illinois, February 30th, and pick one of these and make that our official symbol. I think that's what we need to be looking at. And I think it would be a vast improvement on things like our graphics on our website, on our letterhead, on our checks, things like that. It can be an image that people see and they're going to be able to see of Champaign County. So that's just my thoughts on that, is that we need to be looking at this as two different issues and maybe not talk about it as the seal, but talk about it as our official logo of Champaign County. The other thing is with the rays of light, just to, you know, because I like to throw bombs every once in a while. Remember, we're going to start getting rid of townships. I heard it here in a county board meeting a while ago.
Well, we could just preemptively reduce the number of rays as like a warning. There's only like 3 rays. That's it. Yeah.
Ellie, or excuse me, Jenny.
I will say that I know that these designs do include some of the feedback that the clerk did offer. He was here for one of the meetings when we looked at the seals. He was also adamant about reducing into the circle, like taking the courthouse like out of the circle was a bad idea. That was going to cause problems. I know that this isn't, you know, getting feedback from him tonight, but this is definitely incorporating some of what I remember him saying at that meeting.
I'm pro 5.1 with some tweaks.
Samantha.
And I'm going to echo everybody else. I think 5.1 is our seal just upgraded. You know, I think we could eliminate those circles. And I'm definitely I'm just stuck on that one. I think that's the one that would be more simpler or simple to put on our headings and our buildings with less confusion. So I'm 5.1. That's the only one that I like. Thanks.
Go ahead, Beth.
I gotta agree with the raise upon raise upon raise. This is not a Taylor Swift concert. This is a seal. I would ask if we could do like a corn stalk instead of like 2 ears laying there, because it's so easy to see literally anything but corn there unless you're told it's corn. It's a rolling pin. It's a hot dog. It's a, you know, that is not a traditional corn shape. Like when you think of corn, like if you look at the Nebraska corn huskers, it is not a piece of corn laying on the ground. It's like, If we could do like a corn stalk, like your traditional, like it's on the plant and it's, the little, it's not a sheaf, but, I'm sorry, I'm
I'm like
blanking on the
active
corn
corn instead of
terminology.
passive
It's like,
corn. I get it.
just corn in its natural habitat as opposed to already picked and shucked and thrown on the ground would be a little more traditional, a little more artistic, a little more recognizable. So if you got rid of the rays in the little holes and if you made the corn look more corn-like or more recognizably, unmistakably corn-like, I think that would be a winner.
So how about this? It's, 8:06, and I feel like I personally have made this meeting like 30 minutes longer than it needs to be. So it sounds like 5.1 is what has the most support. I will ask him to reduce the rays and make the circles a little bit more defined. I'm also going to ask him to reorder the circles to match the seal, and take off seal of, so this is clearly just a logo. And once I get those edits from him, and I might get crazy and ask him to put it in a couple different colors. We'll see what he thinks. I'm going to email that out to you all to take a look at, because I would like us to actually make a final decision, preferably next month, because if we do want to do this, and the decision could be we don't want to do this, but if we do want to do this and we can settle on one, I would like to incorporate it into the new building, and we need to make that decision. I think Dana might murder me if it's not made next month, and there will be no incorporation at that point, so. Yes, Ms. Taylor.
Sorry. I just want some clarity because of the discussion about how our clerk has already made suggestions and improvements and stuff on this, what he needs.
Well,
Should
this
it
is
not?
not a seal, so I'm sorry for the clarification. I'm not proposing that we change every single stampy thing that we use that crinkles the paper. This is for our letterhead and our business cards and the signs in the building, not the official, I don't know what the term is for the metal thing that actually emboss, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, because I was
And
like, we shouldn't
ideally,
remove
this
the word
will-
seal if that's the case.
Well,
But
and we're already basically in the direction now that by the time we get done with this, it sounds like it's going to just be a slightly more embellished version of that, so we're fine.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, if everybody's done, I will just say that I'm not taking the aspersions cast at Bennett personally. I'm not sure where our former executive would be, but she's not here anymore. There was some discussion, Eric, though, to put some external lighting on Bennett that would be similar to the lighting at Assembly Hall and at Memorial Stadium. But the price point was too high, so we're not going that way. One other comment that's related more to the courthouse and the bell tower, clock tower in particular. Bruce Hannon was a local environmentalist that passed away on the 18th, and I did not realize until I got into this office that Bruce was also heavily involved in the renovation at the courthouse, the bell tower, the clock, and continued to stay very engaged and involved, particularly with the clock. Dr. Stork came to me earlier this week and suggested that the board might be interested in honoring Mr. Hannon, perhaps putting some kind of a small plaque up near the clock, nothing external. But I just wanted to put that out there for everyone to consider. And please get back to me if there's a general agreement that that'd be something the board would be interested in considering. We can put that on the agenda. All right, moving on. The decennial committee reports to the county board are posted on the website, Township Road Districts and Joint Harwood Township and Road District. And seeing as we have no further business, all right, Jeff.
Thank you for your patience. And I know you just are so patient, but I would recommend that people look at these just once every 10-year reports. And I found it very fascinating. I just wanted to say a couple points. One is the average local government in Illinois serves how many residents? 1,800. Compared to the national median, which median means what? Doesn't mean average, right? It means so many above, so many below. So the median size for a local county government or government is 2,850. and ours is 1,800. Hardwood Township, which I don't think I've ever been there, out of the 29 townships, it has a population of 610. 610, 273 houses. They have no employees. They have 2 part-time employees, not including elected officials, which is a township supervisor, road commissioner, and 4 trustees. One thing that they're expressly proud of is they're managing their budget well, their road fund well, and those are the key points that they highlighted in the report. So I think it's appropriate at least to acknowledge that one particular township. That's the end of my comment.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.